Hello everybody, Indie Dev Dylan here, and welcome to another devlog on Hero. Also, it'd be really appreciated if you stayed to the end for an important update. Moving on to the next update for Hero, I wanted to continue making new features for my game, as well as revisiting things from the previous version. What I wanted to fix from the last version was how platforms interact with the player. Whenever the player collides with the platform, the player will become a child to said platform. But one of the issues is that even if the player is colliding with the platform, it doesn't mean the player is on it. So I added a check to see if the player's Y velocity was at 0, and then it would be a child to the platform. Another issue I encountered was the player would not stick to the icy platforms, but instead if the platform was going left and right, the player would slide without doing an input. Now we can move on to new stuff for the game. I wanted to add a new type of hazard to my game. This hazard combines two things into one. This is a spike platform. It uses the same properties as the normal platform, so if the player lands on it, the player will become its child, but you definitely don't want to do that. It's also very easy to change its size. I plan to use this in ways that will make the player slow down or pace their movement in order to think about their surroundings. This next feature is one that will have potential to expand in the future, but as of right now, I'm using an icicle as a falling hazard. The object has a respawn position, the icicle itself, and a trigger. This game object uses a very similar script to the normal falling script. When the player collides with the trigger, it will tell the icicle to fall. When the icicle hits something solid, it will be destroyed, and if it hits the player will take damage. After a certain amount of time, the icicle will then respawn at its respawn point. The next feature I wanted to add was inspired by the hidden walls in the new Super Mario Bros. Games. In the game, whenever the player sees tiles that don't fit or look concave or like they have something behind them, the player can go over to these locations and walk behind a wall. Doing so will activate a mask overlay and show the player through said wall. Currently, I don't have any special sprites made for these hidden areas, but I will have them soon, and also the next features I don't have completed sprites for either. The next feature I added was a crush hazard. This hazard will kill the player whenever the player collides with it, and another solid object on the opposite side. The game object has basic movement using my platform script. Currently, the crushing functionality hasn't been integrated with the player, but here's what I have so far. Right now, I'm using this green box as a substitute for the player. When we go to the console and have a collision occur, you will see that it is, in fact, colliding. When I do apply this to a player, it will obviously reset the current scene, as the player will die. The next feature that I added to the game was an interaction system. The first part I will showcase is the switch. With the switch, you'll walk up to it, and when you collide with a detection zone, you'll be able to interact with it by pressing triangle for PlayStation, Y for Xbox, X for Nintendo, or E for a keyboard and mouse. I have a variable for the state of the switch as a float, one for on and -1 for off. When I start building out levels for the game, I will be able to better utilize these tools, because as of right now, I only have it debugging the state that it is in. But they will be able to perform certain things and have certain mechanisms work in the future. Similar to the switch, there is also a button. This will behave in a way that when the player is on it, the button is pressed and the function occurs. When the player steps off, the button will be set to its default state. As you can see, the game object gets activated depending on if the player is colliding with it or not. Firstly, I wanted to apologize for the long wait on this devlog. I've had this update completed since early last month, but I've been putting it off. As some of you may know, I joined a game jam which put me a week behind schedule. But what you don't know is that I've been contemplating on how to move on with this project. Opening it up is often overwhelming as there are so many things that are in the project. I began working on version 0.7.2 and honestly wasn't happy with what I was doing. To me, the game just doesn't feel right, and the update I was doing for the slingshot wasn't really going as planned. I've scheduled out multiple updates ahead of time, but it's becoming a bit too much to handle. I don't want to work on this game if I know it's not going to be enjoyable, and where I'm at, it doesn't feel like it would be enjoyable. So I'm going to temporarily stop working on Hero. Now this won't be for long, but I wanted to let you know my process. I think taking time away from this project will help me, and also working on smaller projects will help me get back into the flow of things, and also motivate me to finish this bigger project. I also don't want to divide my attention away from my game development, so I will be taking some time away from this channel until I have another Hero devlog ready. My plan is to work on small games for a bit, and when I'm ready, jumping back into development on Hero. That being said, I'm also considering restarting Hero as well. I hope you understand and enjoyed this video. If you have input, please let me know. I've been your host, Indie Dev Dylan, signing out.